Thank you, sir. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to what month is it? April meeting for the Indiana Housing and Community Development Authority's Board of Directors meeting. Thank you for the retreat at Mineral Springs here for hosting us here today. Before we get started on our agenda, I want to acknowledge a few individuals that are in the room and give them a chance to address the audience. First, I want to call up Dwayne Miller with Flaherty and Collins.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, I'm Dwayne Miller. I work for Flaherty and Collins. I'm the developer of this project that you're participating in here for your meeting. So thanks so much for joining us today. This building is the sanitarium. It was built in 1924 as a sanitarium. You know, this is where the mineral springs, so people would come here and get healed in the water. I think we have a couple pools out back if you guys want to jump. And then we took a building and renovated it downtown. It used to be the Five and Dime store called the Kivitz building. So as you're touring, feel free to go in there. We have Saco in there in the main floor, sharing some space with us there, serving the population. Then we took on a jail. That's where the sheriff and our famous a resident there was Dillinger, and at one time, so he's from the Near East Side of Indianapolis, but I think they ended up moving over here in this area and started his career over in this area. But anyhow, I wanted to introduce Gary also, and Gary is one of our partners because I think come on up, Gary. What I'm excited about most is I've been in the field of community development for 26 years. Used to work on the Near East Side, but you know, anytime you're using the historic tax credits or the low-income housing tax credits that you guys are definitely overseeing and participating in projects like this, it's not. I look at it as you do two things. One is you're building supportive housing that's helping a specific need for quality housing, but not only that, you're actually jump-starting the neighborhood. You're helping taking the first risk to get something started, and hopefully it starts generating some excitement, some other investments, some local land owners taking care of the property. So that's the community development and economic development side. And what you get to see here in Martinsville, that has actually happened. So that's what's really exciting about it, because when you actually go down on the circle, I'll let Gary talk about it from a local area. And Gary is with Livestreams.
Wellspring next door.
Wellspring's next door, and so he's the one that had enticed us and partnered with us on this project. So go ahead, Gary, why don't you?
Good morning.
Morning.
Thank you for hosting. Glad to host you here in Martinsville to see what we've got going on. And there's a great deal of activity right now. And I just came from campaigning this morning. We have a city election coming up in May the 7th. So I was out doing my share for that this morning as well. Yeah, as Dwayne said, we partnered. The buildings next door are referenced as Wellspring, and it's a homeless shelter. And we have 9 emergency apartments where they stay 30 to 60 days so they get back on their feet and at no expense at all. Then we have what's called the transitional shelter, which is a 2-story, 23 apartments, 1 bedroom to 3 bedrooms over there that act as our homeless shelter. We're working with you right now on converting that to permanent supportive housing. So that activity is going on as well. As Dwayne mentioned, there were more than a dozen of these sanitariums around town. This was a train destination. You saw the depot next door. I think if you're early enough, you heard the train go by as well. So this was a train destination. They got off and they walked, and most of the sanitariums were within walking distance of the depot. That activity began to fade pretty quickly in about the 30s. And so this particular building ultimately became a nursing home. And it was a nursing home up till 2002. The National Benevolent Association out of St. Louis closed it up in 2002, and it sat vacant until we did recently the remodeling of this to convert it into low-income housing. Unfortunately, when they closed up in 2002, they made available to the community the buildings next door that we converted to the homeless shelter. We couldn't afford to finance the conversion of this building into what it needed to be and is today. So it sat empty, vacant, deteriorating rapidly for the next almost 15 years, I guess, at that point. And so that this was a save of this building, which is already on the National Historic Register. Beautiful building with a good history. So being able to come in and renovate it and put it to a useful purpose in our community, we certainly thank you for it. It's been good to have. But if we get a chance and we go downtown, you'll see the downtown square. This is a county seat, so the downtown square has a number of buildings that have dated back some into the 1880s and 90s, and that kind of vintage. But a couple of local investors bought up 22 of those buildings at one time. And so they're in the process of renovating those, and they've found out it's a bigger project than they expected it to be. When you get into an old building, that's usually what you find. There's some issues and problems there. So I hope you can join us and see what all is happening in the town. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you both very much. Thank you. Cindy Hampton, is she available? Cindy, correct me if I'm wrong, is the property manager for the retreat at Mineral Springs here? Good morning.
Welcome. I'm Cindy Hampton. I'm the property manager. I've been with Flaherty & Collins for about 16, 17 months. And just to tell you a little bit about our activities, we have bingo once a month, and the residents love that, and everybody's a winner. And we also have a podiatrist that comes and sees our residents. We also have the neighborhood watch meetings. We also have a quarterly meeting with the Martinsville Police and also the fire marshal as well. We also have meetings with SECOA. We partake in that with the dementia and Alzheimer's meetings. And the residents love our pitch-ins because everybody likes to eat. And we have some good cooks, let me tell you. We also have a valet waste company we work with. We also have Morgan County Connect that comes to our buildings and will pick up residents if they need that. And on that note, I just want to talk about my residents because we are a family. We're not just residents. We mean something to each other. And if there's something that somebody needs or somebody needs help, they're there for each other. I've got residents that they have each other's phone numbers. If they don't see each other in a couple days, they're calling and checking on them. And sometimes you need somebody to call you or knock on your door and say, "Are you okay?" And we do that. And if I don't see them in a day or two, I'm calling and saying, "Do you need me? Can I help you?" And they're right there. Or if they see me come to work sick, they're bringing me iced tea or a donut or something. You know, they're checking on me as well. And so we have a love for each other that it's indescribable. And I'm proud of everybody that's here. I'm proud of all the buildings. There's so much history in this building. I have a resident that lives here that when it was a doctor's office, her mother was a nurse to a doctor. And there's residents here that have other family members that worked here when it was a nursing home, when it was doctor's offices. And some of them have history at the Kivitz building because they have an aunt or an uncle or a cousin that worked over there and handed out candy. And sometimes, you know, candy was a penny a piece. Well, sometimes you get 13 or 14 pieces of candy for 14 or 15 cents, and they'd throw in 2 or 3 extra pieces free. So, but we have a lot of history in these buildings, and my residents are wonderful. And in my opinion, my residents are the best in the state. And if you have any questions for them, they will answer you right away. And they will tell you just how wonderful it is. One lady says that her apartment is a suite. She has a corner apartment and it's beautiful. And she calls it her suite. So I thank you for the opportunity to speak. Have a nice day.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Mayor Shannon Cole, I think I saw sneak in the room in the back. Would you like to come up and give us a few welcome remarks, please?
How are you?
Well,
Sorry I'm late.
you're
I've
fine.
been dealing with some health issues lately. First, I just want to say thank you for having this here and coming to our city and holding this. I consider this an honor to have you here. So we're grateful that you guys took a trip down here today, especially in this weather. I just want to say that I ran on a new look for Martinsville when I ran back in 2015. And if you look around downtown, I think that you can see that that is happening. One of the things I like to think of is that the Flaherty and Collins project helped catapult that for us. I was on the planning commission when this first came to be, and when they first approached us, and I believe it was 2014. At the time, we had a member, Joanne Stutchin, who was very involved in that project and worked really hard to get that put together. Also with the city council, I also served on the city council. So when they got their financing done in 2016 at the very end, we were so excited because that's something that we had worked on for so long to see that happen. And as a realtor, I know how that can be. It's kind of bumpy up and down roads. But really working with the Flaherty and Collins people was just great. I mean, they came in, they did a good job. They could see what we couldn't see. I could kind of see from being a realtor what the potential was, but they really could see the potential. And working with them hands down was just spectacular. One of the things I'd like to think that Flaherty and Collins helped Martinsville bring was the downtown economic development. When I presented my idea to Artesian LLC back in early 2016, one of the things I mentioned was that we had this project going on, that we were working on getting this put together, and that we would have all these residents here that could support and have sustainability for what they have going on. And even though, as Gary said, it was a bigger project than they thought, don't underestimate them. This was a bigger project, I think, than Flaherty and Collins thought. I remember going into the Kivitz building and one of the walls almost collapsing in the bottom. But we all worked through that. We worked together because they worked so well with our city people, and we got that fixed. And they saved 3 of our historic downtown buildings. So I just want to thank you guys for your support with that. I want to thank you guys for the great article about Martinsville in the magazine. And I just want to thank you guys for everything you've done for us, and we will continue to hopefully see the success of Martinsville over the next couple of years. Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Before we get started, we'll do a quick introductions of the board around the table, and then we'll determine quorum. You start, Mark.
Mark Pascarella, so I'm the board designee for the public finance director for the state of Indiana, and I work for the Indiana Finance Authority.
Mark Wollner, I'm the designee for Indiana Treasurer of State, Kelly Mitchell.
Tracy Barnes, Chief of Staff for Lieutenant Governor Suzanne Crouch, and designee.
Jacob Sipe, Executive Director of the Indiana Housing Community Development Authority.
June Midkiff, Governor's appointment.
Sheena Robinson, paralegal and board secretary, IHCDA.
Thank you very much. General Counsel, do we have a quorum?
Yes, Mr. Chair, you do have a quorum.
So we officially call this meeting to order, and we'll start going through our agenda today here. First item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from the March 28th, 2019 board meeting. Any questions on the minutes from that board meeting?
I'll move approval.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Minutes are approved from March 2019. We'll call up Ryan Hamlet to discuss recommendations for the Choto pre-development loan, New Hope Development Services, Inc.
Morning, Board.
Morning.
Ryan.
I'm Ryan Hamlet, Real Estate Production Analyst for Southern Indiana, and I'm here to recommend the approval of 4 Choto pre-development loans for our partners, New Hope Development Services out of Jeffersonville, Indiana. Each year, HUD allocates IHCDA an allotment of Home Investment Partnership Program funds for the development of affordable housing throughout the state. And by regulation, we're required to reserve at least 15% of those funds for organizations that have been certified as community development housing organizations, community housing development organizations, or CHODOs, for the new construction and rehabilitation of affordable homebuyer and rental housing. Additionally, these certified CHODOs may apply for pre-development loans to help facilitate these successful projects. These pre-development loans come in 2 flavors. They can either be site control loans, which are used for specific activities prior to a partner attaining site control, or they could be, as in the case of these loans today, seed money loans, which can help cover specific pre-construction costs if the applicant indeed already has site control. New Hope Development Services has requested 4 such seed money loans that will assist in funding architectural, engineering, and legal fees for 4 different home projects. They have applied for $17,900 for Aberdeen Woods 7, for which they propose to add 3 duplexes to a multi-phase project neighborhood in Jeffersonville that caters to grandparents raising their grandchildren. They've requested a $14,400 loan for Highland Place, which would be the rehabilitation of 16 existing affordable housing units in Scottsburg, Indiana. They've requested $18,150 for Highland Woods, which would be the new construction of 11 units also in Scottsburg. And finally, a request for a loan for $16,500 for River's Edge, which would be the rehabilitation of 39 units in, I believe, 5 different buildings in Clinton, Indiana. These loans have a total of $66,950 between the 4, but each one of the loans will have their own separate contract. Each of these loans have a 0% interest rate and a 24-month term. And the intent is for the applicant to repay these loans once their project has successfully received home funding. In the event that one of the projects is not funded, New Hope is required to pay these loans back. However, that being said, if IHCDA has determined that IHCDA has the ability to forgive these loans if we determine that there are obstacles to the project beyond the CHODO's control. These pre-development loans have been somewhat underutilized in the past couple of years. And so our key performance indicators as we track these loans in the future is to track any change in our partners utilizing these loans as they relate to our outreach and attempts to kind of develop more CHODOs throughout the state. And then to also track the success rate of the pre-development loans or projects that receive pre-development loans that successfully receive home funding as well. But at this point, I'd be happy to entertain any questions.
Any questions from the board?
When you say the interest has waned a little lately, what would you say the number of applications or the discussions you've had with?
So these 4 loans and a loan that I brought last board meeting are 5 that we've received. There's been 1 more in the last couple of years beyond that. I think that as we work with some developers, for instance, New Hope is a newly certified CHODO. As we kind of work with some of our partners and show them what's available through this process, we hope to see more use of this.
Thank you, June. Any other questions?
I think just from a board perspective, less a question, more just a comment compliment. I think utilizing the CHODO pre-development tool, I think is fantastic, and I appreciate the strategic focus on that, particularly as we see some work being done in Scottsburg, in Clinton, and Jeffersonville, and we know the need for affordable housing around the state, and particularly those areas. I think CHODO pre-development, if that can kind of help incentivize or seed some of those projects, I think that's a great avenue.
If there are no other questions, we'll hear your resolution.
I've actually got 4 resolutions.
Are we doing all 4 at once? Or is it one or separate? Separate. Thank
These
you.
are all going to the same, they're all going to the same entity?
They are, yeah.
Okay. I'm comfortable doing them together, but we can do them separate.
However you wish.
Let's do them separate.
Okay.
Thank you.
Staff respectfully requests the board approve the following resolutions. Resolved that the board approve home funding in the form of a pre-development loan for Aberdeen Woods 7 in the amount not to exceed $17,900 to New Hope Development Services as recommended by staff.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Resolved that the board approve home funding in the form of a pre-development loan for Highland Place in the amount not to exceed $14,400 to New Hope Development Services as recommended by staff.
I will move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Resolved that the board approve home funding in the form of a pre-development loan for Highland Woods in an amount not to exceed $18,150 for New Hope Development Services as recommended by staff.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
And finally, resolved that the board approve home funding in the form of pre-development loan for River's Edge in an amount not to exceed $16,500 to New Hope Development Services as recommended by staff.
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. All four recommendations are approved.
Thank you, board.
Thank you. We'll now call up Carmen Lethig to talk about recommendations for one of my favorite programs here in IHCDA, the My Community, My Vision Community Project Funding Request.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Carmen Lethig, and I'm the placemaking manager here at IHCDA. One of the programs I oversee is the My Community, My Vision program. The My Community, My Vision program is a partnership between IHCDA, IUPUI's School of Public and Environmental Affairs, local governments, and then high school youth throughout the state of Indiana. The program was started in 2014, and the program's main goal is to engage high school students in their community throughout Indiana so that they decide to stay in Indiana once they finish high school or college, and to come back to their community and live and make a difference in their community. So in a nutshell, I'll briefly go over what the program is. Basically, IHCDA contracts with IUPUI SPIA to provide graduate students assistantships to SPIA graduate students. The students are then paired with a high school aged youth group that has competitively applied to the My Community, My Vision program and been accepted to the program. The graduate students spend the school year providing mentorship and education and expertise on how to help the students basically create what we call a community vision plan, and it goes throughout the entire school year from September until April. Throughout this process, the high school students are really engaged in their community and with the IUPUI students, and we challenge them to critically think about and evaluate their community. So to really look at their community and think about, why are things this way? How did my community get to be this way? And we mean that from both a social element and then also a built environment element. We teach them how to gather data related to community development, how to work with their local governments, their community members to gather input, how to express their wishes for their ideal community. They also research planning and project ideas throughout this planning process. And then they ultimately develop a realistic community vision plan, so an actual physical plan that's it's usually around 50 pages. So it's like a miniature version of a very miniature version of a comprehensive plan that a community might create themselves. And they also develop a community project throughout this process to move their community closer to what it would be like if it was their best ideal community. So at the end of the program, the tangible results are that community vision plan that can be adopted by the local government for implementation. That's the ideal situation. And then $5,000 from IHCDA to implement that project that they've come up with throughout the school year. So the program is wrapping up its 5th program year currently, and today I'm here to request $5,000 for each of the 5 communities that participated in My Community, My Vision throughout the 2018 through 2019 program year. The project details for each community are pretty detailed in your board memo, but I'll just quickly go over what each community is doing. Batesville is requesting $5,000 to implement a public art mural. Huntingburg is requesting $5,000 towards a portion of a new public park. North Putnam High School is requesting $5,000 for a community garden. Union County High School is requesting $5,000 for a downtown beautification in Liberty, Indiana. And Warsaw is requesting $5,000 for a public art mural. And the other thing I want to note is that I will have an intern that will start on May 20th, and her whole job is to work on the My Community, My Vision program and some other placemaking initiatives as well. But her primary responsibility will be to work with each of these communities and pick up where the program has ended here this past April and make sure that these communities come, or these projects come to fruition in these communities by October of this year. And with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Carmen. Any questions from the board?
I'm just curious, any feedback, as it is the 5th year, I'm just curious, as it's going on, I mean, is it building enthusiasm, are the projects being maintained, and
Yeah, so, well, this is only the second year that we've actually had implementation dollars for any projects. So prior to last year's program, we didn't give any money for the program. However, ever since the beginning of the program, we have solicited input through surveys, not only for the high school students, but for the adult mentors that participate in the program at the community level and the college students who work in the program, both at the beginning of the program and at the end of the program. So we gather, one, their knowledge about community development, about their community, like their initial feelings about their community, and then at the end, you know, have they learned anything? Has their feelings changed? And I will say, for the most part, we get very positive results. I just went over the results from this year's program, and very generally. I haven't looked at every single survey yet, but yesterday for this past year's program. And I think what we find is that most of the students have a new appreciation for their community, because they truly don't understand, like, what, like, you know, how did a development like this come to be? You know, it doesn't just happen, right? There's a lot of work and many years of different partners coming together. So that's the kind of stuff that they learn, and the results that I read yesterday have indicated that they have a new pride in their community. The idea behind the projects is that we really want them to be able to come back and say, and have that sense of pride and be like, I helped do that project, you know, that they come back and they can tell their friends and their family, and hopefully like their future children, that, you know, it's important to be civically involved and to make your community a better place. And look at this thing I did when I was in high school.
Do you want to talk a little bit about our relationship this year with AIM and the Mayor's Youth Council?
Yeah.
How that's kind of starting to continue to emerge, and potentially for what it looks like for next year?
Yeah. So this past program year was the first year that we embarked on a partnership with, I want to say right, Accelerating Indiana Municipalities, otherwise known as AIM, because they had recently hired someone, and one of her main projects was to get the mayor's youth councils throughout the state in a more organized manner, and to increase the number of high school aged youth that are positively participating in their communities. So I worked throughout 2018 with AIM to partner my community, my vision, in their efforts. So they were sort of already doing their own thing, and they had a leadership summit in the fall of 2018, and then just recently they had a legislative day for youth just a few weeks ago. And so we were able to partner with the program, and basically, you know, only mayor's youth councils can participate in that programming. The good thing about My Community, My Vision is that you don't have to be a mayor's youth council to participate in that program. We, as you can see from the memo, we had 2 high school groups. And so they were able to see what it would be like to be more formally organized. I was also, as a mayor's youth council, I was also able to speak directly to a lot of mayors through special sessions, like presentations, I guess I should say, to market our program and say, you know, this is something a mayor's youth council can actually work with and have a project and a main goal, because that's usually obviously what mayor's youth councils are doing. So we're continuing to market the program with them and partner with them so that their efforts complement ours and vice versa.
Carmen, this is fantastic. A question maybe is, as I look at some of the projects, is there an expectation of like the communities will then take this and step up? By that I mean like some of the projects like painting a mural or the community garden, which are really cool. And then, you know, also like Union County, like where they're using their dollars to put out like trash receptacles and planters and benches, things that perhaps maybe a community could also do. And I know there's different needs in different areas, but maybe that was one that stuck out. Like, I don't know how to frame that in a way that's not critical. It's not intended to be critical. It's just, would love for communities to maybe step up and put out trash receptacles. Do you know what I mean?
I absolutely know what
Okay.
you mean, yes. So I will say that if you look at the chart and in the board memo, you'll see for Batesville, Huntingburg, and Union County, the total project cost amount are, way higher than the $5,000. And Warsaw's, their total project cost is $8,000. So, for those, you can, basically, they have had a lot of other partners. For example, in Huntingburg, Du Bois County Community Foundation and the city have given money to not only just that portion of their park that the My Community, My Vision dollars are going to, but to the larger park in general to meet a need that there wasn't a park on the north side of the north side of town. So they are trying to capitalize on what they're already doing and bring in My Community, My Vision. And with Batesville, they are also doing the same thing. They have a lot of other funding that is going into that, and they're actually working. The public art mural that they are putting in is the same one that the same person who did a mural in Greensburg that was actually funded by the Creating Places program. And so they're hoping to work regionally to have an art trail to be able to get people to go and visit that region. So, I mean, I think that most of our communities are looking at the bigger picture. I've sidestepped your question. But Union County, basically, they were having some, not Union County, Union County. They were having some issues just coming together on exactly what they wanted to do. I can say that the high school students got a great dose of reality when it comes to working on community development projects, because not everybody always agrees on what happens. And so I had a good heart-to-heart with the graduate student mentor, and I was like, I know you had a hard time with this project, and it wasn't what it started off ideally as, but on the other hand, I think that they learned a lot, and they know that these things are hard to get implemented. And so it's a what do we call it? It's an incremental project of what they would like to do in the long run.
I don't have a question. I just want to make a comment. This has been my second year in being able to attend the My Community, My Vision event that was with the presentations from the various schools and the various high school students. And maybe it's timing and just kind of looking at where things are at. But as we're in the middle of session, and I step out to come to this event and hear these kids come together, having put together these community development activities and have worked with their local officials. And I think one of the groups had to present to their city council to try and get some money and funding
I think
support.
many of them did, yes.
For their projects, and it's very hopeful for the future. Compared to what I see some going on down the hallways from us sometimes. So it's encouraging and positive to see that the kids at this age are getting engaged, and to the efforts of Carmen and her team, the graduate students, helping them understand how to gather data and do those surveys. Every single one of the groups brought forward issues and concerns of diversity and inclusion in their communities and the survival of their communities. I'm assuming it wasn't prodded or pushed in any capacity, but they saw that as a concern and as a problem of the longevity and sustainability of their local small neighborhoods and communities and such. And so they are seeing these problems firsthand and are putting ideas together. And so I commend Carmen and her team for continuing to push this program out there. And definitely, I'd love to get some additional outcomes and feedback to your point kind of down the road here with some of the actual projects. But projects aside, I think the character that is building and the individuals that have been participating has been enormous.
And that's why, one of the reasons why I'm so curious, because I think it's an amazing
Absolutely.
program. The idea of bringing in the youth and saying, think creatively, come up with ideas, and we'll actually give you some money, because with big problems, they're not going to bring money to the table.
Absolutely.
And having those towns then work with the youth, when you talk about sustainability and growing,
Right.
you're exactly right? At some point, that's the up-and-coming generation.
Exactly, that's the next
And
level, yeah.
they need to be prepared, and it sounds like they want to be prepared, so we need to give them a tool
Bingo.
to allow them to be prepared. So I think it's a great concept of it, so.
And I should mention, and I should have mentioned this when you asked your question, that one of the key performance indicators that I'll be looking at is tracking community support for the implemented projects. So we'll gather information through surveys or other qualitative measures. Most of these communities have Main Street organizations, and we can utilize them. We can also utilize, traditional surveys with the community members, like, at events and things like that, to get input on how they feel about these projects, if it makes them feel a greater sense of pride about their community, et cetera, from the general public and not just the my community, my vision participants.
Yeah, definitely. I think when the older generation allows the youth to come in and takes them seriously, I think it's a tremendous thing, and I think it's a huge boost to the youth who are growing. So, I mean, I think the program's great. I just want to make sure that, obviously as it grows, we get the most we can out of it, because I think there's a huge potential. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
If there are no other questions, we'll hear a resolution.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Staff respectfully requests that the board approve the following resolution. Resolve that the board approve development fund funding in the form of grants for comprehensive community development placemaking project implementation to the recipients listed above in an aggregate amount not to exceed $25,000 as recommended by staff.
So moved?
A second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thanks.
We'll move on and bring up Chris Nevels to discuss a recommendation regarding modular workforce housing.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Morning.
My name is Chris Nevels. I'm the Home and CDBG Manager. And I am here today to talk about IHCDA's Modular Workforce Housing Pilot Program. Just provide you all with kind of a general overview of where this program came from and kind of the basic ideas of how it'll be implemented. So Indiana currently suffers from a lack of entry-level workforce housing. The state's unemployment level remains below the national average, and as a result, many employers have more open positions than they do people to fill them. In the communities where these employers are located, there's often not sufficient housing to attract people to these areas to actually work those jobs. The state's existing home inventory continues to decline, and as a result, the homes that remain, the prices of those homes continue to increase. Stick-built home construction has not returned to pre-recession levels, and those homes that are being built are being sold at price points that are, generally speaking, way too high for an entry-level home buyer to afford. Two of the biggest factors that contribute to this high cost are the high cost of site control and the high cost of construction. So now I'm going to talk about a couple of programs that we think can really be used to address these problems. So back in January of 2014, the IHCDA board approved the Blight Elimination Fund. That fund awarded $69 million to communities across the state to acquire and demolish blighted structures. Through March of this year, communities have acquired and demolished approximately 2,700 structures all throughout the state. So each community that received BEP funds was required to have at least one program partner. Those program partners were all required to obtain site control of lots before any sort of demolition or construction was done on them. And a lot of those program partners actually still have control of those lots. Those lots may have had demolition done on them, but nothing else has been done. So right now those lots are sitting there, they're idle, they're unused, and they're not contributing any money to the local unit of government on the tax rolls. Another aspect that we're going to discuss is modular housing. So modular housing is a construction process in which homes are constructed off-site and then transported to the project location, where they're then assembled and installed on-site. So modular housing offers a number of different benefits. For one thing, it has a 30 to 50% shorter construction schedule. It has decreased costs due to the efficiency of using the same off-site construction process for all of the homes at the same time. And also there are less delays caused by weather or by a shortage of skilled laborers being available. So the Blight Elimination Program and modular housing can provide two ways of addressing the state's workforce housing crisis. First, unused BEP lots can be easily obtained by developers for little to no cost, which reduces their site control costs. And additionally, for a local unit of government, it makes sense for them to donate or sell the lot at a reduced cost to the developer, because that's an easy way for them to get those properties back on the tax roll. And also, it's just an easy way for them to finally do something with those lots that are just sitting there being unused. Modular housing both decreases the costs of construction and also the time that it takes to construct the homes. And as a result, that allows developers to sell the homes at a reduced cost and get homeowners in quicker. So what IHCDA is proposing is to incentivize partnerships between not-for-profits, local units of government, and modular housing manufacturers and dealers. And through this partnership, to utilize these BEP lots that are already existing and are being unused, to utilize those lots to build single-family modular homes. And so these modular homes would then be marketed to homeowners making 140% of the county AMI, area median income, or less. One other aspect of this is that those not-for-profits would then be able to take the proceeds of their home sales, recycle those funds, and continue to use that money for further single-family affordable housing down the line. So to just kind of summarize what IHCDA's next steps are with this project, we are planning to release an RFQ in the next couple of weeks and select up to 2 teams. And these teams will be composed of, at a minimum, a not-for-profit applicant who will be kind of the team leader, and then also a representative of the local unit of government or a BEP program partner, a representative of the modular housing dealer or installer, and a licensed realtor or individual who has extensive knowledge of the area real estate market. So these applicants will be limited to doing projects in communities that have at least 5 BEP lots or more. And we've put together a list and also a really cool interactive map that applicants will be able to use to identify those communities and even see down to the actual parcel where every one of those BEP lots is located. So they can really narrow in on where they want the project to be and kind of find areas that have a concentration of lots, which is really ideally what we're going for. So we will be making available up to $500,000 per team, so a total of $1 million. And that funding will come from interest on tax credit assistance program loan payments. IHCDA will select up to 2 applicants with an IHCDA review committee. We'll review all the responses to the RFQ. And then at that point, we will bring those selectees back to the board for approval. So just to be clear, today I'm just here to kind of give the board a general overview of what the program is going to be and kind of get your approval for moving forward on it. And then once we have selected those respondents and are ready to actually commit IHCDA funds, we'll be bringing this back for each of those 2 respondents and providing more information on their exact projects and what the specifics of what they're proposing. So I know that was a lot, but at this point, if anyone has any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
So our goal today is to approve the scope of the project and the program through the RFQ requirements and such.
Correct.
Any questions?
Developer sells, profits then redirected back into affordable housing. Mandatory, or can they siphon off a piece, or?
So the profits from the home sale will be required to be used for additional single-family housing. So it's not going to have, at that point, we're not going to require it to be modular housing, and we're not going to require it to be on BEP lots. That's just going to be the initial portion. But once they have those home buyer sales, they can keep using the profits to recycle and continue with the affordable housing.
Okay.
Do you want to mention the partnership with the Indiana Manufactured Housing Association and maybe some of the conversations we've been having with them to make sure that they were on board with this initiative as well?
Yeah, so last week, several of us in the office took a very exciting RV ride in the rain and heavy winds to Elkhart, and we met with 5 of the manufactured housing or manufacturers. And so we met with 5 of them and kind of went over the details of this program. Obviously they had some questions about it. We had some questions for them about the details, but overall they were really interested in the program. And they are working with us to provide us with the list of their dealers. So there's modular housing manufacturers, and then they kind of are at the top of the hierarchy, and then below them are the dealers, and they kind of work on an individual basis with the people who are requesting the modular housing. So they provided us, or are in the process of providing us, with a list of all the modular housing dealers across the state, which we are going to kind of get all together into one large list that we can provide to the developers. So we're really trying to make sure that the applicants that we get have all the information that they could need at the time to make sure that they can make these partnerships. So they were excited about the program, and they were looking forward to they were already talking about ways it could be expanded down the line. And so they were definitely on board.
Just a comment, Mr. Chair, I think really just a credit to Jake and his team's leadership on taking two, I mean, you got this challenge of the federal government paid for BEP to do the tear down, but wouldn't allow federal funds to do any kind of really post, you got this vacant lot, and clearly there's issues with, just workforce affordable housing. I having not looked at other states, I would doubt any other BEP state has kind of blended those two issues and come up with a creative solution like this. So I think we're excited to help support that innovation and excited to see kind of what comes of it. So just a comment.
Thank you. Any other questions? If not, we'll hear your resolution.
Okay. Staff respectfully requests that board approve the following resolution. Resolved that the board approve IHCDA's modular workforce housing pilot program as recommended by staff.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Chris.
Thanks.
We'll now hear from our Board of Director, Mark Pasquarelli, on the 2018 IHCDA external audit.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
So the audit committee did meet with BKD, who's the external auditor, and we went through the financial statements and an overall presentation that was given to us. And so before we get into some of the findings, just want to go over some of BKD's responsibilities, because I think it's important for the board to hear that, at least publicly. Some of the responsibilities, they are going to express opinions on the fairness of the financial statements. They're going to conduct our audit in accordance with the auditing standards generally accepted in the United States, government auditing standards and uniform guidance. They also are going to perform relevant procedures to obtain audit evidence about the amounts and disclosures in the financial statements. And they're also going to assess the risk of material misstatement due to error or fraud. They do this through a sampling process, so they're not checking every single actual transaction, but they do a sampling process. And it's not just random. They kind of went through their actual sampling process, and that's statistically done to try to find out where the areas of stress and weakness possibly could be or should be, and really hone in on those areas as opposed to just randomly selecting. So they went into a deeper dive, which I thought was very good, especially for someone like myself to hear that they are covering all their bases. They're going to opine on the following: the financial position, the changes in the financial position, changes in cash flow, notes to the financial statements. A couple things they don't do. They don't really go through the management discussion and analysis or provide an opinion on that. And they do not provide an opinion on pensions. I only mention this because pensions obviously are always a big area of concern, especially in municipalities. But the good thing about IHCDA is that INPERS, which is the state pension, really handles all the pension for IHCDA, and they kind of say, hey, here's what you owe, and IHCDA makes those payments. So at that point, that's not something that we need to be worried about what pension calculations are internally with IHCDA. And that takes a big risk, obviously, off of the situation. So there's actually three things that they really are looking at. They're looking at the financial statements and independent auditors report. They also are looking at the schedule of expenditures of federal awards and independent auditors report. As you can imagine, we receive millions and millions of federal dollars, and the federal government wants to make sure that we're using that appropriately. And then the last is the letter of required communications of those charged with governance and management letter comment. As you're looking through all the financials, I think the main thing that the board would always like to hear was the change in that position. That position did go up, so we have been using our money wisely. And then they also went through some of the rationales for why some of the changes happened within the individual aspects of it. None of them, I think, really stuck out to be a material issue or concern. And so therefore, the summary for the schedule or the financial statements and independent auditors report is a unmodified opinion. And in English, and because I need that sometimes when it comes to accounting, unmodified is very, very good. It means that there have been no issues that have been detected. So there was no material weaknesses mentioned, no significant deficiencies, no adjustments or proposed adjustments, or non-compliance material to consolidated financial statements that were noted. And so, again, that's about as best as you can get. So there's not really much more I need to say other than the congrats to the staff for being able to provide that. On the schedule of expenditures of federal awards, obviously this situation is very dire because, again, of all the amount of money that we are getting from the federal government, must make sure that we do that. I'm happy to release the same thing. A unmodified clean opinion has been given, and I'll state the same thing. We have no material weaknesses, no significant deficiencies, no adjustments, and no audit findings were noted in the current year. The last one that I mentioned, obviously the management comment letter, contents were discussed and accepted by management. They also, management did leave the room so that the audit committee could talk to BKD on their own. Nothing that they said in that meeting differed from what they said in front of management. So they said that the staff had everything ready to go when they walked in. That tells me, A, they're paying attention to it, and B, they know what they're going to be asked for. So they have a very good working knowledge of what's going on with IHCDA and what's to be expected in the audit. All questions that were asked were promptly replied to, so therefore we had no issues with management delaying or not producing actual evidence that has been requested from BKD. So again, that's about the best you can hear from. So it was very efficient, and by being efficient, I always look for unintended consequences, but sometimes it can be a good thing. So in this, by being so efficient, they're also able to use their time during the year to work on issues that are coming up in the future or to get clarifications on stuff. So during the year, there's no surprises at the end of the year.
Sure.
So I thought that was terrific news. The other thing that I'm happy to report from the audit committee perspective is if the board remembers, BKD is actually a relatively new firm to do the audit process. And so switching firms, you always wonder, are they going to find something that maybe the old firm didn't, maybe the old firm wasn't looking as hard. They are not, yet they are still, doing a very deep dive since they are a new firm, to make sure that nothing has been missed. So now you have two firms that have been looking at IHCDA, let's say over the last 2 to 5 years, and they're almost always coming back with clean audits. So that's makes me sleep at night. I'm sure it makes Jake sleep very well at night as well. And again, I think it's a really kudos to the finance staff. They do a wonderful job. So with that, I just wanted to, that's my presentation. I'm happy to take any questions, or we can leave any questions. I believe BKD is here as well. And so happy to take questions before we read any resolutions or go through that process.
No questions, just a comment. I would agree with you that staff has done an excellent job here, and I was a little intimidated when I saw 129 pages, but I did scroll through them all and read through them, and it looks like you've got a good crew doing a great job, so congratulations on that.
Yeah, and again, I can't state it as much. I know I mentioned this several times, but I do want to say it again. It's a lot of hard work.
Yeah.
It's a lot of detailed work. It's a lot of painstaking work. And so the fact that they are coming through clean, I think is, like I said, a tremendous asset.
Are any of your finance team here, Jake, that we
They
can
are.
recognize?
Yes, yeah, we can recognize Rich Harcourt's our Chief Financial Officer, and Vinya Dunbar is our Director of Accounting, is here too. I know they are. If you want to raise your hand or something, maybe acknowledge, they are here.
Kudos to you two
Yeah.
for many years of, I know Rich has not been here many years, but for many years of,
I was gonna say, Vinya really does the heavy lifting, she and her team, they've done a terrific job, and I think this is the 6th year without, any kind of exceptions or adjustments, and Vinya's been here 6 years, so terrific job for her and her team.
good job, thank you.
And one last note before we go to the resolutions, also, we've also been introduced to several new IHCDA players or newer people to doing the actual financials, and so they're working under the finance team, but they are doing an exceptional job too, and they're taking leadership roles, which tells me you're developing bench strength too, which is another thing that kudos. So overall, very great report. So.
Good to hear.
One individual that's not here is Jonathan Rez, who is exactly what you're referring to, and some of our team, but his work has also been very helpful for Vinya and the team. His leadership, his dedication to the agency has been tremendous and helps support that bench that we have, I guess. So he's been someone else I'd like to recognize for his work. So.
Great, thank you.
With no further questions, and I will start with the first resolution. So the audit committee respectfully requests that the board pass the following resolution. Resolved that the board approve the December 31st, 2018 IHCDA financial statements and independent auditor's report attached hereto is Exhibit A as recommended by the audit committee and staff. And if I remember correctly, by me doing that, that is already making a movement. So we just need a second.
I believe that's correct.
Yeah.
I will second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
The audit committee respectfully requests that the board pass the following resolution. Resolved that the board approve the December 31st, 2018 IHCDA Schedule of Expenditures of Federal Awards and Independent Auditors Report, attached hereto as Exhibit B, as recommended by the audit committee and staff.
Is there a second?
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
That's it.
That's it.
Well, thanks to you, Mark, as well, for serving on that audit committee and helping to corral everyone together and keep the information flowing to the board. And we appreciate the support and diligence that you provided as well. And
My pleasure.
appreciate it. With that, we'll move on and we'll bring up Kylene Welling to provide an update on staff engagement.
Good morning, Board.
Good morning.
Morning.
I'm Kylene Welling. I'm our Chief of Staff and Chief Operating Officer. And wearing those hats, I am responsible for our training and development of staff. Unfortunately, we are not able to view the PowerPoint today. It is in your packet that you received, or I have some hard copies if anyone would like one.
On your
Good.
tablets, it starts on page
That
one,
should be
it's
on
one
the
nineteen.
118.
All right.
Okay, yeah, 119.
Yep, and so it starts off with the dark blue one, so.
All right, and first I wanted to tie in how this relates to our strategic plan. This does fit in directly with our strategic plan under priority number 3, which is to emphasize a continued quality of service by encouraging professional development and training opportunities for our staff. You might question, how do we define engagement? There are many definitions you can find. The one we settled on was emotional commitment plus a discretionary effort. Gallup, which surveys a lot of workplaces, finds that approximately 34% of U.S. employees are engaged at work, meaning that the employees are involved in, enthusiastic about, and committed to their work and workplace. So our challenge is to continue to, how do we encourage our staff to feel this way about IHCDA? And 34% may seem low, but that's actually up 2% from the last time they had surveyed it before that. So things are getting better across the U.S. What behaviors might we ask staff to exhibit as an engaged employee? Optimism, team orientation, someone who's willing to go above and beyond, staff who are solution-oriented, selfless, show a passion for learning, and are willing to pass along credit and also accept blame. So that's kind of what we're looking to develop, and how do we encourage staff to develop those attributes. In 2018, we had a lot going on as an agency. We were moving, we had some new programs that we were launching, so we really wanted to take a focus on customer service training. We reached out to the University of Indianapolis and were able to partner with them to develop a custom curriculum to provide a 2-track training, one for our leadership team and then also one for our staff level team on some of the same topics, but really trying to help that leadership team understand how to model some of those behaviors and learn a little bit more about, who was our customer, how would we define that, and how would we look at all the different groups of folks that we interact with. So this was conducted over 8 months in 2018. We had a facilitator devoted to us that was able to really get to know IHCDA and spend a lot of time with our staff. She did 30 in-person interviews of staff, gathering feedback from them on, what they felt about our customers, what did they know, who was our customer, and how did they feel that IHCDA was preparing them to provide good customer service. And that was really eye-opening and helped us develop this curriculum around that. So we spent a lot of time trying to define who our customer is. We settled on 3 groups that we actually work on, focusing on customers, stakeholders, and process partners, and how all those groups are different. They're all really important to us and our success, but that we need to figure out how to more clearly get that voice of the customer being the end user of one of our products or programs. So for instance, here, the residents would be our customers. The developer would be a process partner, and the community is one of our stakeholders. So all those groups are really important, and they all need to come together, but we need to make sure that as we develop programs and products, that we understand who the end user is. Some of the topics we covered over the 8 months were change management, general customer service, teamwork and collaboration, marketing and branding, and product service knowledge. Our teams were really interested in learning more about their teammates and what they did and what kind of programs and products they offered. So a lot of good opportunities to learn from each other and for them to learn more about the breadth of the programs that IHCDA offers. Some cool pictures of our Marshmallow Challenge. This is one of the staff favorite activities. This is a great example of some cross-functional teams that we put together and working together to create their marshmallow structures. If you Google this, this is one of these icebreaker topics where kindergarten students routinely outperform mechanical engineering master's degree level students. So going back to a lot of what Tracy said, I'm not sure what changes from childhood to adulthood, but we do lose something about teamwork. So that was our customer service training with University of Indianapolis. Other things that we did in 2018, we hosted with the Lieutenant Governor's Office an OMB Super Circular training to help staff that work in federal programs to understand more about allowable costs and what to be looking for as they monitor subrecipients. We hosted our Simplex problem-solving trainings, 1.0 and 2.0 cohort. That's a facilitated problem-solving method used to bring clarity to fuzzy situations so problems can be identified, defined, and improved on. We were able to send 28 staff through that, and that's a partnership with the University of Southern Indiana. We sent 2 staff to our NCSHA Leadership Academy at Notre Dame University. That's an annual event hosted by our nationwide organization. Some things we did on the engagement front, trying to understand more about our staff and their views on things. We moved to new office space last year, but we did do a survey of staff before that to find out what they liked about our current environment and what they were looking for in a new space. And tried to reflect that as best we could within the constraints of the space. We engaged a team of staff to help with selecting the furniture for the workstations, including having a chair fair where we actually brought in office chairs and all staff got to sit in them and test drive them and vote on them. So we've been hosting quarterly all-staff meetings, and that's a great way for everyone to keep on top of what's going on within the agency. Last year, we were lucky to partner with Habitat for Humanity for their build in South Bend, but also had some opportunities to construct some of those walls in Indianapolis. We had several staff that were able to participate. And we also offer, IHCDA offers a volunteer leave program. We had 13 staff utilize that last year. And there's some pictures from our group that got to work in South Bend with Jimmy and Rosalind Carter, so that was very exciting. So looking to 2019, we're already a little bit through that, but our plans for this year are, first of all, we already launched a women's executive leadership program in Q1. We have 10 staff participating in that, and that is a pilot project that we hope to learn from and replicate again in the future. We will offer the Simplex training again for 25 staff in Q2. Getting back to our roots of continuous improvement, our goal is to offer 4 rapid improvement events this year that would look to improve processes, find program efficiencies, or improve efficacy of programs. We've already hosted 1, and our goal is to have 1 per quarter. Our continuous improvement team is offering training and refreshers on our different tools that we use. Our first quarter we did 20 keys, and we actually have a survey out to see what staff would like to learn about next. We are continuing our quarterly all-staff meetings. We've added some components so the staff can share updates on strategic plan projects they're working on, and also Kaizens that they've been working on within their teams, looking for small incremental changes they've made to various processes and what results they've seen from those. To build off of our training we did with University of Indianapolis, we are in the process of adopting our service standards, and we'll provide a more specific training for all staff on those, also encouraging them to come up with some of their own service standards depending on who they work with, as far as some of those standard turnaround times and just what expectations people can have of their interactions with us. We'll also offer difficult conversations and conflict management training. Those will both be with University of Indianapolis. Some other fun things, our marketing team has partnered with the State Department of Agriculture, and we're bringing in Indiana Grown members every month to showcase their products and introduce our staff to some local producers. We're continuing our volunteer leave program, and we've actually done a more concentrated dive with School on Wheels this year. They just came into our offices and did a presentation about what they do. They work with elementary students who are experiencing homelessness in the Marion County area to provide tutoring. And we've decided, last year we had about 13% of staff that participated with our volunteer leave time. Our goal for this year is to have 20% of staff provide service under that program. We'll be having fair housing training for all staff later this year, and then various other fun activities. Staff Appreciation Week is coming up. We just did our bracket challenge for the basketball tournament, Biggest Loser, Huddle Passports, and some other fun activities Finally, Tom is not here today, but we did want to give a shout out to our landlord. I think they've really embraced the notion that a lot of our employees spend a lot of time in the workplace, and there's only so much individual tenants can do to control that, and they have done a lot of really up to their game on some of the nice things they've been able to offer to our staff, like laundry and dry cleaning pickup, a new lunch lobby service where various caterers bring lunch into the building, some different tenant meet and greet events as we've had a lot of new folks move into the building. And most importantly, they brought the ICANN puppies. Everybody loves puppies, so that was appreciated as well. So nothing to vote on, but I'm happy to take any questions that you have.
Thank you very much, Kylene. Any questions from the board?
Thank you.
Keep up the good work. And now we'll hear an update from our Executive Director, Jacob Syke.
Sure. Well, thanks, Kylene, for that work. I know the staff appreciate the engagement that we have been able to develop the last few years with our team in making IHCDA a great place to work. So I know the Mayor Cole has left, but I also want to recognize her and thank her and the team at Flaherty and Collins for hosting us here today and welcoming us here to Martinsville. It's a great opportunity for us to see amazing work that's happening, and I want to thank Flaherty and Collins and the mayor for everything. Obviously, we didn't just create affordable housing here in Martinsville. We preserved the history and the culture of this community with these historic structures. So it's exciting to see the impact that it's having here in the city, and as Dwayne was mentioning, the additional investment, most of it which is private capital that is now coming into the city in the immediate downtown area, and the impact that it's having. You can visually see it, which is exciting. And I want to thank Ryan Hamlet as well for his dedication to preserving our historic structures across our state. He's done a great job partnering with Indiana Landmarks, which IHCDA hosted and was a sponsor for again this year, in Charette with multiple different universities and down in Evansville. And Ryan led that effort. Ryan also writes articles in the magazine highlighting the investment that we're making into many of our historic structures across our state. And the next magazine is going to come out next week. We have one that he wrote on Greensburg and the impact that it is having in the downtown on their courthouse square as well, and the additional capital investment that's going on there. So I just want to thank Ryan for his work in preservation around our historic structures, and bringing awareness to the work that IHCA is doing, and how housing is also community economic development as well, which is the vision that I think you heard from Mayor Cole earlier, was that housing is bigger than just creating units. While that is the mission of our agency, we also create economic development opportunities. So just really proud of that. While we do make major investments with those types of developments like here, tens of millions of dollars that go in, we also make small investments. Like, I want to thank the board for those small $5,000 awards today for approving that, and Carmen's leadership with creating places. We are having huge impacts across our state with small investments, and I mean small, less than $50,000. And in this situation this morning was $5,000, but those are huge engagement impacts that we're having with our youth and with some of our underutilized spaces around all of our communities. And the Creating Places program that Carmen has led is truly really inspiring. We can have, what's our motto? Smaller, quicker, cheaper is our motto, and we're definitely delivering on that. So want to thank that. This month I've had the opportunity to attend 2 events from Creating Places. A couple weeks ago I was in the town of Nashville for a groundbreaking, which I never thought I would be there for a skateboard park, but I was. And that was led by a youth, Kids on Wheels, and their goal was to raise $50,000. They raised over $60,000, and with 103 people making contributions to the skateboard park in Brown County, and they're so excited to see them there at that groundbreaking with shovels in their hand, knowing that they're going to be able to have their own skateboard park, and is really rewarding. It's funny, when I came into Nashville right before the event, I stopped at one of the gas stations, and on the door, it said no skateboarders. I was like, well, we're gonna fix that. So it was so great. But not only are they putting in a skateboard park with that extra money, they're gonna put in hammock swing, a tire swing, picnic tables, and I have no idea what it is, and I've Googled it, and I still don't understand, but it's a gaga pit. And if you can explain that to me, what it is. I know it's some kind of dodgeball thing, circle.
I believe it's basically like dodgeball inside like a fence.
Yeah.
But I've never participated.
It's going to be in Nashville if you want to participate in it. Maybe we can do that after a board meeting or something. We could,
My son's
we
a
could go
big
to
fan, it's a big thing.
Finally found a legacy project, Jake. That's fantastic.
So really excited with that. The other event that I had an opportunity to go to from Creating Places was the ribbon cutting in Rushville, which was part of their City Center's marquee. And if you have seen this, it's a beautiful marquee in right downtown Rushville that has restored a 104-year-old Masonic temple that now has been repurposed to hold the new city town hall. It also is classrooms for Ivy Tech, and it also provides, it's a movie theater with some of the best popcorn is there. And I had an opportunity to attend that event as well as a ribbon cutting. Their goal was to raise $50,000. They raised just over $50,000 with 84 patrons making contributions to that crowdfunding as well. So I've really had a good time this month in celebrating the success of Creating Places, and again, thanks to Carmen for her work. So we have assembled a team to work on this workforce housing challenge within IHCDA. We have a couple of initiatives that we're launching, and I want to thank the board for approving the modular housing, workforce housing pilot. We have another one that's coming up, and Matt and I have been working on it with the team as well. But first, I do want to recognize Chris for his leadership in modular housing. He's done a great job. The map that has been created in partnership with the Sagamore Institute is really a great resource that we've been able to create, overlaying the blight elimination, anchor employers, looking at the dealers. So it's an interactive map that is going to be a really great resource for not only for this pilot program, but I think for other organizations who want to repurpose those BEP lots as well, using other resources. So hats off to Chris for the work that he's done. The other pilot that we have that we're working on currently, this year's budget set aside $4 million for IHCDA to develop a workforce housing innovative initiative. We are currently working on developing a public-private partnership with some anchor employers across our state who will co-invest with IHCDA into developing workforce housing and using multiple different strategies in a risk-share kind of model. And so we're really excited about this. We're looking to partner with probably 4 employers at a maximum of maybe of $1 million each, which would leverage another $4 million. That would just get it started. We know there would be additional leveraging of other monies that will be coming into this as well. But Matt and I have been working on it. We've also have been having some conversations potentially with a consultant who will help us with not only the workforce housing component, but also blending in the workforce development component to this with these anchor employers. So our goal in terms of a timeline is to look at probably around June to get this to the board, this initiative with some of the more details on it before we go out with an RFP. But something else that we're working on that you're going to see come down the pike in terms of a public-private risk share investment strategy. I'm not aware of this ever being done in the nation. So this is all brand new, and Matt and I have been brainstorming and identifying risk and for the agency and for our partners, and making sure that we can know that this is something that we can actually deliver on, and at the same time being excited about it, and blazing some new ground here in how public and private investment can work together in a non-traditional way of creating workforce housing. Hopefully in June we can get this to you in a way in which gets your support. So The other thing I just want to mention, I know Rick's here from BKD. Thanks, Rick, for raking us over the coals for the last several months and doing a thorough job with our audit. As Mark alluded to, this is a very complex audit in multiple different areas. And so I want to acknowledge the team again for Vinya, Jonathan, and Rich, and all the program managers for the work that they do. It's amazing the complexity of what this agency does publicly. You know, there's about $500 million that comes through this agency, and to have a clean audit is really impressive. So, so with that, I just want to remind the board, in the May board meeting, we'll be back at IHCDA, and that will be on May 23rd. It'll be in our office. So with that, Chairman, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you very much. If there is not any other business, we will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you all. We're adjourned. Thank you again for hosting us here, and we'll see you next month.